What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can freely express themselves, straight up, no chaser. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, a place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like button so I can continue to provide you with some good content. I want to let you know, as a preface before I begin, that this video is the third installment of a series of videos that I'm doing to try to decipher the philosophy behind the Combahee River Collective Statement. I'm doing this because I want people in the manosphere to understand what the goals and the aims and the principles of the Combahee River Collective were and the impact that they have currently had on Western culture. So having said that, let me dive right in. So the third section that they talk about, or the third topic that they cover, is problems in organizing black feminists. The second was what we believed. The first was the genesis of contemporary black feminism. But again, now we're dealing with what they consider to be problems in organizing black feminists. So I'm just going to dig right in. So they say, during our years together as a black feminist collective, we have experienced success and defeat, joy and pain, victory and failure. We have found that it is very difficult to organize around black feminist issues, difficult even to announce in certain contexts that we are black feminists. We have tried to think about the reason for our difficulties, particularly since the white women's movement continues to be strong and to grow in many directions. In this section, we will discuss some of the general reasons for the organizing problems we face, and also talk specifically about the stages in organizing our own collective. So there you have it. They got some problems. The feminist movement for white folks had taken off and seemed to jettison to the stars with no hitches. But as black feminists, they found that they weren't able to gain the same amount of success. So they took it upon themselves to try to find ways to tackle these problems and to, just like the white feminist movement, to jettison themselves into success, right? So they say, the major source of difficulty in our political work is that we are not just trying to fight oppression on one front or even two, but instead to address a whole range of oppressions. We do not have racial, sexual, heterosexual, or class privilege to rely upon, nor do we have even the minimal access to resources and power that groups who possess any one of these types of privilege have. We know you don't have racial power. No, we're talking about at this time. They didn't have sexual power, so they say. They didn't have heterosexual power, or the norms of heterosexuality working in their benefit, nor did they have any class privilege. Now, I want you to fast forward in time to this day and age and ask yourself, do they have any racial power? More than likely not. Do they have any power based upon or predicated upon their sex? Well, shit, all you got to do is look at the family court, the child support system, and a whole host of other systems that are in place, domestic violence shelters and so on and so forth, and law and policy surrounding it, and a cultural narrative that kind of frames them as victims, even though they often possess more power than men, and cause men to commit acts of suicide and could derail men's careers. But I don't want to go too deep off into that. Then ask now, are they at a disadvantage because of their sexuality? Because one could argue at the present moment they're making huge strides in pushing forth homonormativity, queer normativity. You heard the term gay is the new black. It ain't a color that they talking about. It's talking about black folks. Gay is the new black. They're persecuted in the same manner that black people have been persecuted. Now, again, I just want to, I've made a video about this, that racism and sexism are not the same. Racism has been responsible for the death of millions of people, and not just black people. I'm talking about the Jews. I'm talking about even like genocide amongst people who otherwise would be considered to be kith and kin. The Hutsis versus the Tutsis. And then, as it pertains to class privilege, one has to ask the question, do black men have class privilege? The psychological toll of being a black woman and the difficulties this presents in reaching political consciousness and doing political work can never be underestimated. There is a very low value placed upon black women's psyches in this society, which is both racist and sexist. It's both racist and sexist. As an early group member once said, we are all damaged people merely by virtue of being black women. We are disposed psychologically and on every other level. And yet we feel the necessity to struggle to change the conditions of all black women. In a black feminist search for sisterhood, Michelle Wallace arrives at this conclusion. We exist as women who are black, who are feminists, each stranded for the moment, working independently because there is not yet an environment in this society remotely congenial to our struggle. Because, being on the bottom, we would have to do what no one else has done. We would have to fight the world. Damn, fight the world? They got to fight the world. They're coming out swinging. They're doing what's best for themselves. Because at every angle and in every way, they're being targeted. Again, I kind of mentioned this in the second video, Jim Sidanius. I didn't mention in that video exactly what he articulated in terms of a thesis, but it's called the subordinate male target hypothesis. And ultimately, what that work does is it puts forward the notion that typically people who are exposed to racial domination and oppression, typically when a group of people are exposed to that kind of oppression, it's the most representative class of persons or sex or gender of persons that are attacked. It's not the homosexual people that are attacked. Like when the police are gunning down niggas in the street, they're not thinking, oh, well, he's a gay black one. Let's get him. Let's kill that motherfucker. They're looking at a black man looking to kill him. They don't give a fuck. And they don't care where that man is from. He could be from New Guinea, like Amadou Diallo. He could be from Jamaica. That motherfucker could have just came over in a plane from South Africa or Ghana or Kenya. It doesn't matter where that motherfucker's from. He's a black nigger. Just like the rap group Public Enemy used to have a target trained on a man with a fedora. That's what we're up against. Now that's an empirical fact. If you would like to, in any shape, form, or fashion, contest me on this, provide your motherfucking evidence. Provide your evidence. But I digress. Wallace is pessimistic but realistic in her assessment of black feminist position, particularly her allusion to the nearly classic isolation most of us face. We might use our position at the bottom, however, to make a clear leap into revolutionary action. If black women were free, it would mean that everyone else would have to be free, since our freedom would necessitate the destruction of all systems of oppression. Now let me unpack this for a minute. Let me unpack this shit for a minute. Because ultimately what they're saying is that they suffer from every form of oppression, but that black women in no shape, form, or fashion, because they're oppressed, they don't have the capacity to fuck anybody's lives up or to do anybody harm. This shit seems asinine to me. The very idea that as a group of people who consider themselves to be oppressed, and that their very freedom in and of itself means that everybody else would be free, is taking the particular and asserting it as the universal. That's just a mistake. It's a mistake. It's fucked up. There's no good that's going to come out of that. None whatsoever. Because you're basically positing yourself as the universal. We've seen what the results of white motherfuckers having done this is. Anytime you start to think that your shit don't stink, you need to lean a little bit closer, see, because roses really smell like boo-boo. Let me get back to it. Feminism is, nevertheless, very threatening to the majority of black people because it calls into question some of the most basic assumptions about our existence. That is, that sex should be a determinant of power relationships. Here is the way male and female roles were defined in a black nationalist pamphlet from the early 1970s. And here's what that pamphlet says. And I'm just going to read directly from it. We understand that it is and has been traditional that the man is the head of the house. He is the leader of the house, nation, because his knowledge of the world is broader. His awareness is greater. His understanding is fuller. And his application of this information is wiser. After all, it is only reasonable that the man be the head of the house because he is able to defend and protect the development of his home. Women cannot do the same things as men. They are made by nature to function differently. Equality of men and women is something that cannot happen even in the abstract world. Men are not equal to other men. That is, the ability, experience, or even understanding. The value of men and women can be seen as in the value of gold and silver. They are not equal, but both have great value. We must realize that men and women are a complement to each other because there is no house, family, without a man and his wife. Both are essential to the development of any life. Now, what I want to do is, because I have dug into the library crates, as it were, to pull out that original document that they cite. And I can honestly say there's a little bit of chauvinism there. There is. But it doesn't give the whole picture because they only put certain excerpts into their fucking statement. They don't put everything that's said in that document in the statement. They just put the parts that look incriminating to the motherfucker that devised the goddamn document. So the title of this document is called The Nationalist Woman. And it's written by a man by the name of Mumininas of the Committee for Unified New Arc. It was published in 1971 in Newark, New Jersey. So it was a black nationalist organization. And that organization's purpose was, and it says, as nationalists, our lives have only one purpose. That purpose is the building and maintaining of our nation. In building our nation, we must restore our people to their traditional greatness. We can't restore anything if we are backward. We can't leave a legacy for our children if we are backward. We have to define ourselves as nationalists who are concerned with improving our lives to always develop and preserve a better way of living. So that's what they say. That's the aim and the goal of this organization. But here's the quote that they draw from. Here's the quote. In its totality, here's the quote. The black family is a very important area of social organization because it is the smallest example of how the rest of the nation works. As Imamu Baraka points out in one of his poems, the nation is like ourselves. Whatever we are doing is what the nation is doing or not doing. The family unit is the basis of all nations, and the understanding of the roles of those who make the house unified is essential. We understand that it is and has been traditional that the man is the head of the house. He is the leader of the house, nation, because his knowledge of the world is broader. His awareness is greater, his understanding is fuller, his application of this information is wiser. The accepting of the black man's leadership has involved the understanding of the African personality, which has no superior or inferior, only complementarity. The man has any right that does not destroy the collective needs of his family. After all, it is only reasonable that the man be the head of the house because he is able to defend and protect the development of his home. Now the question then becomes, why the fuck did they leave that part out? Where it talks about the accepting of the black man's leadership has involved the understanding of the African personality, which has no superior or inferior, only complementarity. Why was that part conveniently left out of the Combahee River Collective? Even if it's still perceived as chauvinistic, one could say that it is. But still, why would you leave out the part about complementarity and no superior or inferior? Why conveniently leave that out? If you're confident in the fact that black nationalism is paternalistic, patriarchal, and chauvinistic, why not add all the shit in there? Why just take the pieces and bits that look incredibly damning? You see, the devil don't tell lies. He just tells half the truth. And I ain't saying black women are devils. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is you got to tell the whole truth, all the truth, so help your fucking God. I'm going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Don't tell part of the truth. Don't just make part of the case. Put the whole goddamn thing out there. So let me go back into it after this quote. So they say, the material conditions of most black women would hardly lead them to upset both economic and sexual arrangements that seem to represent some stability in their lives. Many black women have a good understanding of both sexism and racism, but because of the everyday constrictions of their lives, cannot risk struggling against them both. Really? I mean, like, fucking really? I just don't think that these women are operating with, like, the knowledge because they're lesbian feminists. I don't know if they were driven to be that way or they had unsuccessful relationships with men because they considered themselves to be smart, ugly, whatever the fucking case may be. But any man that's been involved in a relationship with a woman knows, especially contemporarily, that it's a goddamn power struggle every fucking step of the way unless he finds a unicorn. Because that woman will kick and scream and push and pull and tug at the very nature of your fucking soul. They will fuck around. If they're using you, they will leave you lost in a fucking whirlwind and you won't know what the fuck happened to your ass. But I digress. The reaction of black men to feminism has been notoriously negative. I fucking wonder why. They are, of course, even more threatened than black women by the possibility that black feminists might organize around their own needs. Now we see what the fucking results have been of them just doing what the fuck is best for them. We see where black men are at. We see where the totality of the fucking black community is at, don't we? I wonder why that fucking threat was something that black men at the time resisted against. Now you see the difference between the nationalist literature, which basically was about securing the collective, making sure everybody was good, making sure that the interest of the household was taken care of. But you see here some totally different shit. It's me, about me. What about me? What about me and me? You see the fucking difference? Do you see the qualitative difference in the aim and the objective? Let me get back to it. The reaction of black men to feminism has been notoriously negative. They are, of course, even more threatened than black women by the possibility that black feminists might organize around our own needs. They realize that they might not only lose valuable and hardworking allies in their struggles, but that they might also be forced to change their habitually sexist ways of interacting with and oppressing black women. Accusations that black feminism divides the black struggle are powerful deterrents to the growth of an autonomous black women's movement. Now I'm going to tell you this. Black men are some of the most progressive men on the fucking planet as it pertains to having social and political equality among that of women. Now, there's some assholes out here. But at the same time, there's some women who want strong motherfucking men. They don't want somebody that they can order and boss around. And to even act as if it is not a situation in which there are women in the world who boss men around. We call them manginas. I don't give a fuck if it's offensive to gay people or not. That's just what they're called. Simps is what we call them. Who basically do whatever the fuck their women tell them. Like the perfect example is like in the movie The Best Man, where you got the one dude with the dreads. I don't know what his name is, his fictional name is, or even his real actor name. But there are a whole bunch of relationships with women like that. Where the men basically have to fucking check in. Where you at? Where you going? What you doing? Why you doing this? Why you doing that? Why ain't you spending this money here? Why ain't you doing that? Why? Just a whole bunch of bitching and fucking complaining. I don't think these people are operating with reality and understand the true nature of the struggle of a relationship between men and women that has existed since time immemorial. But let me get back to this shit, man, because I don't want to do an hour video. I don't. Still, hundreds of women have been active at different times during the 3-year existence of our group. And every black woman who came out of a strongly felt need for some level of possibility that did not previously exist in her life. I mean, to me, what this paints a picture of women being fucking stuck in the house with an apron on at the fucking stove every hour on the hour at the beck and call of her fucking husband. That's what this makes this shit seem like this. That there weren't any strong women holding black men down, and that black men had the capacity to understand that if he attacks his woman and she's not doing well because he leaves her in a state of psychological fucking dysfunction and dis-ease, he's harming himself. Do you know how men go around the fucking earth and the world to do shit to please women? This shit is just absolutely fucking absurd. This is what happens when you use theory and ideology instead of actually digging into the bowels and the entrails of fucking reality. Or it could be that women don't like the lot that they're given and that they want to go off on their own because the new conditions that exist in the world, like birth control and the white women's feminist movement, they like, okay, well, fuck it, we can do what we want now. Might that have something to do with it? Let me get back to this shit. When we first started meeting in early 1974, after the NBFO, First Eastern Regional Conference, so that's the National Black Feminist Organization, in case you didn't know, right? So after they got through with their early meeting, their chapter meeting, or whatever the case may be, or their conference, we did not have a strategy for organizing or even a focus. So they didn't know what to fucking do. They didn't have a set of principles to operate by. So they were just stuck with the conditions that they were living in, according to them. I mean, they know best about their condition and how they feel about it, but then, are they thinking objectively? We just wanted to see what we had. After a period of months of not meeting, we began to meet again late in the year and started doing an intense variety of consciousness raising. The overwhelming feeling that we had is that after years and years, we had finally found each other. Although we were not doing political work as a group, individuals continued their involvement in lesbian politics, sterilization abuse, and abortion rights work, Third World Women's International and Women's Day activities, and support activity for the trials of Dr. Kenneth dropped off considerably. Those of us remaining devoted serious discussion to the possibility of opening a refuge for battered women in the black community. There was no refuge in Boston at that time. We also decided around the time of that time to become an independent collective since we had serious disagreements with NBFO's bourgeois feminist stance and their lack of a clear political focus. So you see there's a rift between these black lesbian feminists and other black feminist organizations. So the NBFO, the National Black Feminist Organization, was to them too bourgeois, too bougie. So, I mean, they had people from various sectors that were members of their organization who were doing work for and with the larger feminist struggle. They were working on abortion. They were trying to build a domestic violence or a battered women's shelter for women in Boston. Now, one thing that's crazy about this shit, like where do men have to go if they get fucking battered? Or if they get into a fucking conflict with their woman? I mean, the very idea that women are not bossy and that they don't strike and punch and slap men, that's a goddamn lie. And either you're gaslighting about the truth of this shit, or you're just naive as a motherfucker. It's a fucking lie. It's a goddamn lie. May the devil fucking come and snatch your fucking heart out of your chest type of lie. Now, I'm speaking as an angry motherfucker right now. I'm just pissed off, man. We also were contacted at that time by socialist feminists with whom we had worked on abortion rights activities, who wanted to encourage us to attend the National Socialist Feminist Conference in Yellow Springs. One of our members did attend, and despite the narrowness of the ideology that was promoted at that particular conference, we became more aware of the need for us to understand our own economic situation and to make our own economic analysis. In the fall, when some members returned, we experienced several months of comparative inactivity and internal disagreements, which were first conceptualized as a lesbian straight split, but which were also the result of our class and political differences. During the summer, those of us who were still meeting had determined the need to do political work and to move beyond consciousness raising and serving exclusively as an emotional support group. At the beginning of 1976, when some of the women who had not wanted to do political work and who also had voiced disagreements stopped attending of their own accord, we again looked for a focus. We decided at that time, with the addition of new members, to become a study group. We had always shared our reading with each other, and some of us had written papers on Black feminism for group discussion a few months before this decision was made. We began functioning as a study group and also began discussing the possibility of starting a Black feminist publication. We had a retreat in the late spring, which provided a time for both political discussion and working out interpersonal issues. Currently, we are planning to gather together a collection of Black feminist writing. We feel that it is absolutely essential to demonstrate the reality of our politics to other Black women and believe that we can do this through writing and distributing our work. The fact that the individual Black feminists are all living in isolation all over the country, that our own numbers are small, and that we have some skills in writing, printing, and publishing makes us want to carry out these kinds of projects as a means of organizing Black feminists as we continue to do political work in coalition with other groups. And that's the end. That's the last paragraph. But what's interesting about this, very interesting about this, these women had the capacity to work in conjunction with a movement that has been the most successful movement in the fucking United States. I'm telling you, as Black men, we don't have this fucking kind of structure in place to work from or to work out of. We're going to have to do this shit in a way that nobody has ever done it before. We got to come out of the fucking pits and the depths of hell to even convince people that we're not privileged. That because of our race, we're indiscriminately killed in the street is well known. But you know what? No one gives a fuck about it because we're also criminals. We're also rapists. We're also abusers. You see? Why redeem the irredeemable? What's the fucking point? Let him burn. Let him die. I'll shed some tears for that nigga, but after that, fuck him. Another thing they did, they started to write. They took their intellectual expertise, because many of these women were graduate students and shit. And I guarantee you, right at this very motherfucking moment, many of these women from this goddamn Combahee River Collective are in professorships. They're in politics. They're married to politicians. One of them is married to a motherfucking white politician in New York City. Mayor de Blasio. I think her last name is McCrae. I don't know what her first name is. I can't remember it. I can't recollect. How do you convince a group of men who already think that they know every goddamn thing on the planet, that they need to organize, and that they need to start writing, and that they need to start engaging in political activism? How do you even get a group of men to do some shit like that? Especially after 60 damn near years of proselytization that they're the problem. Because you got a lot of men out here, man, who believe that they are the problem. I don't know if they really believe this or they're doing what they're doing to get some fucking vagina or what. I don't know. Or they're doing it because it's politically expedient and it's the right thing to do in terms of political correctness. I can't really say. But to argue that Black men don't have a problem, and the same motherfuckers, man, that'll talk to you about how you need to not be like that, man. You need to be more open and you need to be more understanding in relation to what women go through. Them the same motherfuckers, even in academia, be the same motherfuckers that'll call you out when they see your woman acting a fucking fool, and then tell you why you ain't got her to where you can handle her. Anyway, man, this is the third installment of this Combahee River Collective joint, deciphering this joint. The next thing I'm going to do on the fourth installment is to come in and discuss what they call Black feminist issues and projects. I'll holler at y'all later, man. One.